What's going on with Contrapoints? Yeah, I'm gonna briefly touch on that as well. I said this like a while back where I was like, listen, this is not for like any person. I said this on my Discord a while back where I was like, now that it's becoming more like acceptable and appropriate for a lot of people who are terrified of their quote unquote brand being associated or tarnished in any capacity with like Israel Palestine stuff, you'll see a lot more people like openly reveal takes, okay, openly say what their points are. I think, I mean, something I said back then, this was like months ago, was if you come out after like, 20 months of, or 18 months at the time, I think it was, of like to like make a statement, and your statement revolves around like how all of these people that were correct from the start are actually evil and bad or whatever, and that your feelings really matter in this process. Like if you come out and do any of that like wishy-washy shit, or if you come out and do any of this like both sides are kind of bad type bullshit when you're talking about like free Palestine, then I'm gonna talk about it. And that's basically it's sad to see, but that's basically what Contrapoints did, like to a T almost. Okay, and I like Contrapoints. I've never had any issues with her. I don't really care about like all the other controversies that she's been in or whatever. You know what I mean? She's, for those of you who don't know, Contrapoints is a bread tuber. She was one of the OG bread tubers. Like she would make these really long, well thought out YouTube video essays, bisexual lighting, all of that, right? And she had been, I guess, noticeably absent. I don't really run around being like, why is my favorite YouTuber not saying anything about this issue or that issue or whatever? I mean, it is odd when like you're a political content creator, or you have major political opinions be known, and you don't really say anything about like perhaps one of the most significant, one of the most impactful global incidents that is unfolding in real time. It is odd, but I never was like, why won't you say anything? Right. And I guess people were doing that a lot. So she did, she came out and like released something, not on Twitter, mind you, but instead on Reddit, which is, I guess, like a less hostile space to reveal this kind of thing. But Natalie is a smart person, like a much smarter, much better thought out person than these people that I'm talking about. She's not like a random influencer that otherwise does like makeup blogs or whatever, and that's the reason why she's like trying to avoid controversy, because she doesn't want to get her like Lush sponsorship taken away from her. This is a political essayist, right? So I guess, and I didn't like look too deeply into this at all, but I guess like the reason why she didn't say anything about this for a very long time was because, by her own admission, it was because you won't like what she has to say. She was a PhD candidate in philosophy before YouTube. I know. I will say this much. As someone who really appreciates Contrapoints' perspective, as someone who has collaborated with her, as someone who's talked to her, someone who's met her, I will say I'm disappointed. I know that everyone will say, I told you so, whatever. But like, it still sucks. It still sucks. And maybe some people will say, what's wrong with her response? She didn't say anything wrong. And I think she basically crafted a message as to why she had not spoken about this issue that much, was because she couched it in like a hyper focus of whatever the online left is doing. How could you be disappointed in her when she did a friendly collab with Hillary Clinton? Yeah, I didn't really care about that too much. Like, I didn't read too much into it. And I know people will say, well, she did a collaboration with Hillary Clinton. I think like that just spells that like someone is interested in pushing their platform further. That's what it could be. You know what I mean? I don't give a shit. BreadTube got a lot of people on the right track in the last 10 years. I understand why people would be disappointed. Can't be bothered with people post-game playcasting. Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like, I think that she had a lot of impactful videos for a lot of people. Like, I'm not going to undermine that. I'm not going to discount that. It's like literally what I do. I try to convince people not to be their old selves, right? And I think if someone has been impactful in a lot of people's lives in that regard, it just hurts to see. But in any case, I think this is her real opinion. This is just her true opinion, and she tried to couch it in an intellectual way. But I do think that it's a very cowardly way to deal with something that is so awful, so black and white. Not a lot of things are black and white in this world. I'll get to it. I'll start off with that, I guess. As you guys know, I normally shy away from talking about whatever is percolating in the takeosphere, right? I don't really talk about like the quote unquote drama and things of that nature, but there is one exception, and that is when someone has a political perspective or a take or something, especially as it pertains to this issue. That's usually when I, explain the shitty drama. It's not like, I don't think this is quote unquote drama is what I'm trying to say. I think this is beyond that. I think this is political discourse. And I'm just going to go through this. YouTuber Contrapoints has posted her full take on Israel to Reddit. Okay. All right. Let's open the image in a new tab because there's so much happening here. There's a lot. It's an effort post. Okay. Contrapoints, user Contrapoints. And I think like it's significant that she posted it on Reddit rather than on Twitter because I think she knows like the environment. So many leftists feel betrayed because I haven't made a video on Palestine. Do they actually want a Contrapoints video on Palestine? Will they be happy if I get in the bath and pour milk on a mannequin of Benjamin Netanyahu? No. I have posted about Gaza occasionally and have quietly given money to Palestinian aid organizations, but I think that what leftists really want is for me to join their chorus of anger. They sense some hesitation on my part and are judging me very harshly on my presumed opinions. I'd rather be judged on my actual opinions. So here they are. Is Israel committing a genocide in Gaza? Yes. Do I oppose it? Yes. Do I feel angry about it? Yes. I also feel a lot of other things. I think if she had basically stopped it here, even here, this is like kind of silly to be like, look, I'm a content creator. I talk about a litany of different issues. I've done all of this stuff. Free Palestine. Boom. It's over. No controversy. Okay. No issue whatsoever. Like, why is this issue being treated as though it is annoying or it's inconveniencing? You know what I mean? If you live in the heart of empire and your tax dollars are contributing to unlimited bloodshed in the global south, but especially in Palestine right now, especially in Gaza right now, and your focus after 20 months is still on your personal feelings, how you feel about it, how the personal hysterics that you have developed around this issue because of the takes that you see online. Okay, if you continue to center yourself and you are just like me, perhaps the most spoiled person on the planet, living in the United States of America automatically qualifies as the most privileged people on the planet. Okay? Anything beyond unconditional support to the Palestinian emancipatory movement is ridiculous. Okay? It's been 20 months. We've all seen the destruction. Stop trying to rationalize away and stop trying to normalize this death and destruction. It's not normal. People recognize that it's not normal, and our institutions are seemingly immovable, and yet we still persist, and yet we still continue to push them with the hopes that we can enact some sort of positive change, hopefully one day. If you're going to come out and be like, I was quiet for the past 20 months, but now I have a statement, and it's wishy-washy, and it's both sides bullshit, or focusing on like leftists online, then spare yourself and everyone else agita and just keep quiet. Just stay quiet. There's no reason to just come out. There's no honor in coming out like this to be like, here's why I didn't say anything. On the other side of this, if you want to know my opinion on this, and I've said it before, and I've said this about ICE protests as well, anti-ICE protests as well. I said this about people who want to fight back against the Trump administration now, okay? If you get over yourself and you get over your own like moral hangups or anything like that, and then you support the Palestinian emancipatory movement, and that's it, and you say free Palestine, it don't matter what I said in the past, I'm here, I've learned my lessons. I've changed my mind. Whatever. It doesn't matter. As soon as you do that, I'm with you. I and many others in this movement will welcome you with open arms. They'll always do that because we need the numbers from every different walk of life, from every different background, regardless of what their other opinions are. If they're united on this issue and they're protesting, then they're good with me. One, doom. She also like presented this Reddit post like one of her fucking videos, which is so crazy, like with the paragraph titles and everything. The week after October 7, it was clear the mood among the Israeli leaders and civilians was overwhelmingly kill or be killed. Existential panic and unstoppable lust for revenge. It reminded me of the U.S. after 9/11. There was no reasoning or protesting them out of it. Nor was it politically feasible for the U.S. to withdraw aid to Israel on a time frame that would make a difference. That's just objectively incorrect. And it makes me feel like she doesn't know enough about this issue. Because there's only two options here. Either she's cynically misinforming people, or she just genuinely is oblivious to this reality. And I think it's the second. It's just wrong. It is just wrong information. You are incorrect. Okay? You're just wrong about this. If this is the genuine logical framework, if these are the underlying premises that you are building your opinion off of, you're just wrong. I'm not even making a moral statement here. I'm saying you are wrong. 100%. It would have required replacing most of Congress and overturning decades of bipartisan strategy and diplomacy. Bullshit. Even in the best case scenario, it would have taken years, so there was a sense of futility, but worse. 2. Misery. The leftist pro-Palestine movement quickly decided that their primary goal was not merely opposition to the genocide, but opposition to Zionism in general. It shrunk the coalition. This is the Will Stancil tweet. The left will never survive this. That the DSA is over. The left will never survive this. There will never be a left movement in this country ever again. That's what they were saying. That's what they were saying almost 2 years ago. Look at the situation now. The Palestinian emancipatory movement has never had this much support in the United States of America. Ever, ever, ever. Someone like Contrapoints, who is very well read on this stuff, cannot put 2 and 2 together. It makes no sense. And it didn't shrink the coalition at all. So you're just objectively wrong about that. When you look at the Democratic Party's base of support, I mean, the Harry Enton CNN Holy Toledo video comes to mind. Harry Enton points to Democratic Party support for Israel shifting more than 60 points in the direction away from being pro-Israel to being pro-Palestine by 42 points. So this coalition has grown, and I see it. I've mentioned this over and over again. It was politically infeasible. What is the pathway that takes us from the present situation to the dissolution of Israel as a Jewish state? I don't see how this could happen without either a total internal collapse of Israeli society or else, nuclear war. As usual, leftists have championed a doomed cause. And at this point, it's like it turns into just your own personal, incredibly petty, incredibly self-centered attitude about what you think the online left is doing. Like, this is just your stupid gripes with leftist people online and what you perceive as like the broader movement, the broader pro-Palestinian movement. Dangerous ambiguities. The vagueness of Zionism as a political Satan enables all kinds of rhetorical abuses. Because on the one hand, right-wing Israelis hold up all anti-Zionist protests as existentially threatening. On the other hand, there's a long history of using the term Zionist in a deliberately equivocal ways. Anti-Zionists are happy for the opportunity to misappropriate the now popular anti-Zionist label to legitimize their agenda, and many people are not informed enough to recognize when this is happening. These problems are mutually reinforcing. You know what's crazy about this? This isn't wrong, okay? But what's wrong about this is to slam this in a conversation where you're supposed to be making this distinction, but from the perspective of someone who is not a Zionist. People like myself, we do this every fucking day. There are so many much better read, much better activists out there on this issue that make this distinction every fucking day. Paragraph 3, dread. The online left has spent the last 20 months distributing hundreds of photos and videos of Palestinian children. The main effect of this, and this is the worst part about this, by the way, the main effect of this has been to create a population of people in a constant state of blood-boiling rage with no consequential political outlet. I fear this may be worse than useless. Anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism are conceptually not the same, and conflating them is dangerous. But in practice, the way Israel is perceived does seep out into attitudes towards Jews in general. I don't think the Jews who feel isolated and wary of the current atmosphere are simply hysterical or hallucinating. Yes, there's a communal trauma and hypervigilance. Yes, there's disingenuous right-wing ghouls dismissing and censoring all criticism of Israel on the pretext of fighting anti-Semitism. But there's also a valid fear of historical anti-Semitism patterns recurring, and that fear gives power to the right-wing Zionist claim that only Israel can keep Jews safe. Does this mean Israel should not be criticized or sanctioned? Absolutely not. But it's something I don't want to risk contributing to, if not outweighed by tangible benefits, so I approach the issue cautiously. This is the worst thing that she mentions in this entire fucking... It's not only wrong, once again, wrong on the facts. It is not the online left, because the online left is not in Gaza. Palestinians are in Gaza. They are the ones who are showing their own conditions. And to treat this as like a simple nuisance, something that is causing your day to be worse, something that's giving you blood-boiling rage, incredibly fucking disappointing. Like, what's the alternative? You see these harrowing images, and you don't look at them and feel some type of way. You don't actually try to get others to also feel angry and resentful. I cannot believe that Natalie typed this out, read it through, made sure there were no grammatical errors, and then thought that this was good to publish. There have been so many controversies, some of it like intra-community, with respect to like takes that Contrapoints has had throughout her career, that I have never really paid too much attention to, you know? I have not. I've thought that she is an overall positive figure that plays a formative role in crafting lengthy, visually appealing arguments that can reach a lot of people and change their minds. Okay? Contra has never de-radicalized an alt-writer. Her messaging has been exclusively for the social media obsessed libs who singularly care about domestic social issues. I don't think that's the case. I think there are probably even people in here who have seen seen trans existence in a totally different light as a consequence of watching her videos. I don't think that's correct. I don't think that's correct. I don't think that's correct at all. I think like she has been able to change people's minds on certain issues. She's played a role in this, okay? Just as I have, just as other people have. Much of the online left spent all of 2024 single-mindedly focused on Palestine and the complicity of the Democratic politicians in sending aid to Israel. This campaign had the following effects. 0 Palestinian lives were saved. Not one fewer bomb or bullet was fired by the IDF. It may have slightly contributed to the re-election of Trump, guaranteeing that the U.S. will put no diplomatic pressure on Netanyahu for at least 4 years and making protests against Israel much riskier and less effective. Trump is also, incidentally, a menace to me and basically everyone I care about. A perfectly enlightened being would feel no bitterness about this, but I do. It's just so, I mean, this is so incredibly fucking self-centered. It's crazy. And not because I'm like centering this around what she's saying, which is trans issues and how much worse they're getting under Donald Trump as opposed to Joe Biden, even though I think plenty of trans people would disagree with that as well, saying that a lot of these anti-trans initiatives kickstarted under Joe Biden and Trump has just simply accelerated it, reaching its logical conclusion. But not only that, but especially on the issue of Israel, this is even more pertinent to the discussion. She is completely incorrect on this. What she is saying about, one, the singular focus of the left, at least here, a lot of people would say that I was singularly focused on Palestine. It was not the case, okay? There were a litany of criticisms that I had about the Kamala campaign and a litany of criticisms I had about the Joe Biden administration. But it is crazy that, like, there is no logic here because you should be mad at the people in power. You should be mad at Kamala Harris and Joe Biden, not just on Gaza, but on numerous different policies, because Biden was incredibly unpopular, immensely unpopular. He was old. He was decrepit. He was a beacon of a dying empire, a dying party that had fallen out of favor. And Kamala Harris said, I'm not going to do anything different. They were too predisposed with trying to win with their own method, with their own strategy, that they refused to see that this issue had changed forever. The real resentment should be directed at the people in power that refused to listen, that refused to abide by the principles of the democratic process where our electeds are supposed to represent our interests in an election campaign, during an election season, during an election year. Elections are supposed to be a pressure valve for people not to revolt because they feel like they have a say in this process. And the Democratic Party's refusal to hear the cries of its own base of support showed so many Americans that this is not a real democratic process at all, which is the truth. But Trump is also incidentally a menace to me and everyone I care about. None of this is the fault of Palestinians, of course, who are overwhelmingly the victims here. Oh, thanks. Thanks, Natalie, for saying the Palestinians are overwhelmingly the victims here. I hope that someday American policy will shift in their favor, and I will continue to support that cause. TLDR, I see the situation as bleak, intractable, extremely divisive, and devoid of any element that could be appropriately transformed into political entertainment. That's why I haven't made a video about it. Hopefully it goes without saying that these are just my thoughts. I'm sure other bread tubers, in air quotes, have different opinions. So that was her take. And of course, when this unfolded on the timeline, everyone fucking lost their minds. Partially because, but what I don't understand about the entertainment part of this is that there's an entertainment component to what I do. I see that. I understand that. But it serves the larger interest that I have in getting people to change their minds. And of course, predictably, Ethan Klein looked at this and went, wow, I couldn't have said this any better myself. This is exactly the war I've been waging. There are examples of people that I have admired, okay? That, for example, I have a difference in opinion on. Bernie Sanders is one of them. But Bernie Sanders, regardless of his difference in opinion on this issue, does not make this the singular force of his political convictions. He understands that there are people who are far more radical than he is, and he never sits there and goes, fuck you for doing that. He doesn't get in the way. As a matter of fact, he endorses people that have a more radical position than he does. But as long as someone, regardless of their difference in opinion on this issue, okay, but as long as someone is not getting in the way of other people who are doing their very best when everything seems so hopeless in the face of unimaginable cruelty, when someone who has a disagreement, yeah, Brad Lander is another example, when someone who has a disagreement with all that, who doesn't make that the focal point, the central point of their politics, and doesn't stand in opposition of those who have passed their framework and sees them as allies, then I have respect for them. I, on the other hand, have no respect for people who are, at this point especially, still both sidesing this shit.